Hey, this is Stu, and we're here at the beautiful Purple Valley with Joey Miles, again, because we like him so much. And today we're going to talk about really just, I'm going to leave Joey to it, believe it or not, and we're just going to say Joey's top 10 tips, really, for beginners. Just things to think about, really, when you're practicing, rather than the technical detail that we have in the Asana School videos. So, Joey, take it away.
Okay, so I've got my paper here, I've written them down. The top 10 tips. These are principles.
Are they secrets? Are they top 10 sage secrets?
You could call them secrets. Some of them are. Some of them are very obvious, and some of them are probably less so. So the first one is about creating the right ambience and the right attitude. We know that yoga is a practice which is like a non-judgmental space. But the thing you have to remember is ambience and attitude. It's not just something that's created outside. So obviously, if I'm having friends over for a meal, I might clean my house before they come, or I might light a candle on the table to create a certain mood. But the thing is we do this in a way internally. We do it very naturally for all sorts of things. If you imagine you're about to go to like a heavy metal concert or some such big party or something like that, it's like, you actually prepare yourself, not just externally, but you prepare yourself for that kind of event. And then if suddenly you get there and they were to shift it and you're suddenly listening to Bach or Mozart, it's completely, it would be very jarring. So actually, you don't even realize you do this, but you create a certain inner stance when you go to practice yoga. And actually, the attitude and the ambience you have to create, or I believe is most useful to facilitate, is an attitude of ease. An attitude of ease and acceptance. And you can do that by just allowing yourself permission to relax. So you drop the expectation, you create this mood of ease. Now obviously we do it in external ritualistic forms by chanting the mantra, by lighting the candle in front of the picture of the guru, or however you choose to do it is fine. But be aware of this attitude, and that's the first thing. Yeah. Create this ambience of ease in your internal space as well as your external space. Okay, so that's number one.
Number one.
Okay. Number two is breath. You have to listen to your breathing. When you listen to your breathing, this creates space, and actually it creates ease. Okay, so listening to the breathing, feeling the breathing, maintaining a focus on the breath, that's number two. That's got to be there. It becomes so that the breath is the teacher. Yeah. It may be that you're in a formal external Mysore environment, but still you have the presence of the teacher, you have the presence of your own breath, and the breath is going to give you feedback always. Okay, so that's number two.
I think you've got to listen and
respond.
Notice,
respond. It's listen and respond.
Yeah. Because sometimes it's all over the place, isn't it? They might hear it, but they're not doing anything about it.
Exactly. So you listen and you respond, so that it's not too forceful, but it's also not doing nothing. Yeah. You do use the breath to get this balance to an effort and effortlessness. So the breath is vital. Now the next thing is obviously we're moving in Ashtanga-yoga, so the movements follow the breathing. The breathing is there, the movements follow the breath. So that's number three. That's always happening. Catch yourself if you're holding the breath or if you're doing the movement without it following. If there's a disconnect, that's got to be corrected or that's got to be shifted, because then that again takes you back to ease. So that's number three.
It's all right to take extra breaths, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because some people think you can only just, I've got to get in this one breath or something like that.
You mustn't demand that you can't take extra breaths. It's interesting to notice, what do you insist upon? If the first thing I said to insist upon is an attitude of ease, then of course you have to have extra breaths, you have to have extra time.
Exactly.
So that's essential. So that's 1, 2 and 3. Number 4 as a principle is then within the posture is the foundation. So where have you placed the feet? How have I positioned or broadened the buttocks so that my relationship with the earth is wide? Yeah. So there's broadness into the foundation. And the concentration then goes straight to the foundation. So that's the most important fourth point. Before I try and align any other part of the body, it's always what's on the ground. Is it broad? Is it steady? Do I need to bring in a brick? Do I need to bring in something to shift the foundation? So
is it maybe even within that foundation?
Exactly,
sometimes you need more weight on the side of the foot.
Exactly, so you pay attention to this, and again, feedback comes accordingly. The fifth thing I would always go for, or I would advise you to go towards, is what I call stabilizing action. So in other words, people are often thinking, oh, it's a pose, I must stretch. But instead of stretching, you have to draw it into the midline. Draw into the midline, and that requires some muscles to contract generally, or at least some arrangement of the compartments of the body. So there's actually a drawing in. Okay?
Can you give us an example of
Okay,
a
yeah,
posture?
so in the foundation, if I'm in Sukhasana here, okay, the foundation is the buttocks, so I broaden the buttocks, okay? And then if I'm actually going to squeeze in, I'm actually just going to do this little gesture here with the feet. That actually lifts the inner ankle, and then there's a narrowing. So I'm not just splaying out. There's actually this is actually going to give support to the spine. So sometimes you'll feel this part here, that there's a narrowing of the hips. That would be an example.
Sometimes we talk about scissoring action of the legs or that sort of thing.
In many
some standard
standing
posture.
poses, it'll be, as you push the foot down, there'll be a drawing up of the patella, there'll be a firming of the quadriceps to get the hamstring to release. So the stabilizing action, very broadly, is drawing from the periphery into the core. So that's essential.
Cool.
So that creates stability. And it also creates an enhanced awareness of the midline, because everywhere we move should be from the midline, from the spine. So the stabilizing action I put down there is the 5th point. The 6th point is the clarification of the 6 directions. So there are only 6 directions: forward, back, left, right, up and down. So as I segment my body, or as I split my body into parts, I need to give clarification as to which part moves in which direction. Now often for a beginner there's a lack of clarity as to which part is moving in which direction. But in a very basic level, it's like this hand pushes down and this hand stretches up. Okay?
So there's like a counter movement.
Exactly, and these two then go together. So once you've clarified the 6 directions, and don't worry if you're thinking now, that's all a bit vague.
What is he on about?
Yeah, so if you're thinking it's vague, then you have to go back to what we do with the asana school, where we literally say, as I pull the hip back, the big toe presses down. So this takes us from the 6 directions, which I put as point number 6.
Sounds like a music group or something like that, a band.
It does, yeah. We can set up
The
the
Purple
Valley
Valley,
band.
6 directions,
Yeah.
coming soon.
But this is an important point. It leads you straight to, as soon as there's a movement, there's a counter movement.
Yeah.
And this is why forward, back, left, right, up, down works so well. There's actually a real simplicity to it, because actually as soon as I pull the hip back, the counter movement is inner heel presses down, for example.
Yeah.
Or as the crown of the head goes up, the sitting bones continue to root. Otherwise you get ungrounded, or otherwise you end up going too much in one direction. This also sort of explains why no sooner have you been told to go one way, you get told to go the opposite. It seems like there's a lot of contradictions or a lot of paradoxes in yoga, because actually you're always doing this. But that's actually just the very nature of spreading and expanding. Okay? Okay, yeah, so we've gone there. Then the next one, number 7. Here we go.
7 comes after 6.
Is to go back to ease. This is a technique that's really useful. Pay attention to the feeling in the hands, pay attention to the feeling in the feet, and pay attention to the face. These are major areas that we always need to soften and relax. So once I've started to go, right, I pull the hip back, press the big toe down, go up, go, there's a lot going on. And actually we need to make sure that we're not getting gripped, not putting in too much effort. So then I scan the face, I'm looking to try and not frown between the eyebrows, not to clench the jaw. So the face is the good place, the hands is a good place to just keep checking in for relaxation. So that's the next one. Point number 8, if you can practice at the same time of day and in the same place, that's really, really helpful. It makes the mind calm. And we talked about the atmosphere and the ambience. Actually, the place will generate that feeling. So just going into the same place at the same time, the same day, it makes it very easy to generate that mood.
So I added into that the same place in the shala, because I'm one of those people that likes my spot.
Yeah.
It's like some of us do.
A lot
But Joey said, no, not that.
This week I've actually been asking students sometimes to deliberately move place in the shala so you don't get too attached to the same spot. But in home practice, if you're practicing at home, I think practicing at the same
kitchen
time,
one
same
day,
place.
bathroom another, bedroom another.
Yeah, exactly. It's okay. Number 9, this is more not just for your own personal home practice, but when you're in a teaching environment, remember that it's absolutely okay to not understand everything. A good rule of thumb, I was recently at a talk in Manchester with a lovely Buddhist monk named Ajahn Brahm, and he was saying a good rule of thumb is like 70%. It's like if you were doing a test and you scored 70 out of 100,
You'd be happy?
You'd be really happy because you're understanding a lot of it, and then there's 30% where it's like you still have got something to master. So a bit like what we're trying to do generating these videos, it's like there's always something more to get to. It's always useful to have something to work on because it keeps a certain enthusiasm in your study and in your practice. So it's great to subject yourself to teachings where you go, I don't understand that bit, but get comfortable thinking I don't understand that. Because if you think you understand it all, you get complacent, you get mechanical. So it's important to push yourself into areas where you don't understand stuff. So that's an aspect. You know, it doesn't have to be literally 70-30, but it gives you that sense. And then the final thing, because that was number 9, point number 10 is do Shavasana, the final relaxation, for a very long time. Okay? As a rule of thumb, if you're practicing for half an hour, you do 5 minutes Shavasana. Now most people tend to practice for an hour, for 90 minutes. So if it's 90 minutes, it's 15 minutes Shavasana. Some of you are practicing for 2 hours, it's 20 minutes Shavasana. So doing Shavasana for a long time is essential. It's my own experience and sort of belief that actually I assimilate the practice when I'm resting, and it might even seem to the external eye that I've fallen asleep, but actually I genuinely believe that's where the assimilation takes place, because it's my understanding that we're literally rewiring the body, we're rewiring the nervous system, and the settling has to come. That's really where I think the juice lies. And I do see for a lot of people, they practice very hard, they don't rest for long enough, and then later they feel a bit frazzled, and it's my genuine belief that Shavasana should be done for longer. So
because it's easy to drop off the end, isn't it? If you're short on time, I've only got half hour to practice or an hour to practice.
Exactly. A lot of the time we squeeze a lot into that bit, and then we rush straight out the door to work, or we get in a hurry. So if you need to cut your practice shorter, do what it takes, but do Shavasana for longer. Then you'll enjoy your practice more. So hopefully those top 10 tips
top 10
will,
tips. Not easy to say.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Joey.
Thank you.